Subscribe to his YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this special episode of Ask Me Anything on Facebook Live hosted by Inc42. The co-founder of Inc42, and for today's episode we have with us the man behind the success of the most downloaded mobile game of our time, Angry Birds. Did you know Angry Bird has been downloaded over 3 billion times and it is one of the most successful premium game series of all time? I'm delighted to welcome Peter Vesterbacka. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Peter is widely acknowledged as the father of Nordic startup revolution and the preeminent entrepreneur and visionary from the Nordic region. He has been listed by Time magazine as among the 100 most influential people in the world. Peter has been behind several visionary projects that have helped build this Nordic reputation of innovation. He founded the world's leading non-profit startup tech event called Slush and is also driving force behind creation of a region that will be Europe's Silicon Valley. The Finland project is a 15 billion multi-government infrastructure initiative by the city of Helsinki, Tallinn, the Estonian government, and the Finnish government. Peter has championed several cutting-edge education startups that are set to change learning as we know it. He sees learning and skills development as a key area of cooperation between India and Nordics. Peter has increasingly taken on the role of an informal global ambassador of Nordic innovation. We have Peter today with us for an exclusive interaction with Inc42 on his visit to India and a lot more. Everyone who is tuned in right now, you can drop in your questions for Peter in the comment section and Peter will get to them shortly. So first of all, welcome to India, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on such a short notice.
No, it's great to be here, and I mean, it's always the best to do things on short notice. So that's just you need to be a bit agile in this business.
Okay, is this your first visit to India?
No, I was actually asked about that. It's the first this year, but I think that I've been to India maybe, I don't know, could be 10 times or something like that. So not that much, but I'm sure that I'll be here more and more in the future.
And for this visit, what brings you to India this time?
This time, actually, we brought like a delegation from Finland and Estonia. So we have some startups, let's say primarily in the education and fun learning field. So we have a whole bunch of people over, but we also have a couple of companies that are focused on AI and robotics. So that is something that we have fantastic talent, and we've been working on AI before it became popular. So we have, for example, Harri Ketamo, who is a guy who's been working on AI for like over 20 years, and then we have the leading robotics event organizer, Robotex. They're actually doing the biggest robotics event called Robotex in Tallinn in Estonia, like every year. So there's actually like amazing stuff happening all over the new Nordics, as I call it. I mean, we have the traditional Nordic countries, but then also our Baltic friends, so Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. There's fantastic development like all over the place, and I think that's one of the reasons why we see this is actually, again, going back to the education, that we have fantastic education that has led to then a lot of unicorns. A lot of people are very focused on that, but I think that I mean, yeah, in Nordics we produce more unicorns per capita than, like, say, Silicon Valley or some of the other hotspots. So we've gotten some things right, and I think that we shouldn't then forget that. I mean, for every unicorn there are several, let's say, slightly smaller companies but very successful companies. So we have really seen a fantastic explosion in startups around Slush and all of the Nordic and Baltic countries. So it's a great place to be. And then I always like to add that it's also fantastic that we're right next to India. I mean, it took me a bit over 6 hours, the Helsinki to Delhi flight, which was packed, by the way, and I just heard that there's been a growth of almost 50% in the travel between Finland and or Helsinki and Delhi and in India and Finland and the region. So I think that it's fantastic to see that. So, and it's not just tourism. I see more and more Indian startups coming through Helsinki when they go to Europe. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. What do you think about Indian startup ecosystem, and how do you think it compares to the European startup ecosystem?
I think that India, of course, one thing that you have going for you here is that it's huge market, and I think that is a good start. And then I think that you have a lot of talent, and of course now with everything going on, like in the US and in the world, I think that we have also seen more and more people coming back to India. So of course, I mean, a lot of the leading entrepreneurs and people who made stuff happen in, for example, Silicon Valley are actually of Indian origin. So now what we see is and the same thing happened in China, that a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs, they went and studied, in Europe or in the US, and then things started taking off and they moved back. And I think that you see the same now here. And then I think also one thing that I'm very excited about, and I think the trip this week, that we have many startups from the Nordics with us here in India, that I see massive opportunity to work together. And I think also then it brings us back to education. That I mean, one of the companies that we have with us, we have EduNation, and they're working on bringing 150,000 foreign students to Finland by 2020, 30,000 to Estonia, and I totally expect many of those foreign students to be from India, because I mean, as I said, we're like in the neighborhood, so it's very close, and Finland and Estonia, like all Nordics, very safe area. So you don't have like crazy people running around killing people like on a daily basis. And then besides like the security, safety, and the geographic proximity, I think also what is very nice, if you look at our university studies, that they are very affordable. So I think that there are so many things now that are many of the vectors are perfectly aligned. So I expect to see a lot more Indian students in Finland. We already have a lot, but I think that we'll have more, because your question about the startup scene, that in Finland you can combine studying and working on your startup very nicely. And in fact, I have to add that we haven't actually announced it, but I guess I can talk about it here. That there's now this big AI and robotics campus that we're kicking off on west coast of Finland in Pori. 5,000 students, all focused on AI and robotics, and that's kind of the concentration of robotics companies in Nordics is actually on that small piece of land. But what is very cool is that the campus has its own airport. And
that's amazing.
So it's like super cool, and of course. First, when you talk about AI and robotics, people don't always remember that, it's also about flying machines, drones, all of that. So having your own airport is like pretty cool.
And your this India visit is about India-Nordic collaboration. Could you shed more light on this collaboration? Secondly, I want to know that what, according to you, the role India and Nordic companies are playing in the global startup ecosystem?
I think that we can play a huge role together. I think that this is something that startup ecosystem is, by its nature, it's very global. And I think that's also, again, like one reason we're here, that we have many startups that could contribute massively to kind of startup scene and the nation here, like in India. But I also think that we should do the thing the other way around. So, a lot of startups ask, so what are you going to do next? And so we're probably going to go to like Silicon Valley and raise some money and, maybe we can set up a shop there. But I think that there is a big opportunity to also, look kind of like the other way, and you know, again, you get on a flight 6 hours later, you're in Helsinki, and then from there, very easy to kind of like take on Europe. And I think that for Indian startups, that's something that I really kind of like recommend. Look at Europe; it's the biggest market on the planet. I mean, if you look at the EU, it is the biggest economy, and then of course you have the US in number 2, and China kind of like the 3rd biggest. And I think that then if you look at, I mean, this is what Chinese startups are doing all the time, that they are actually now setting up shop in Helsinki and then take care of like the European market. And we just, of course, you know, a big example of what is going on, Tencent acquiring Supercell for 10 billion, and Alibaba just invested over 30 million into MariaDB. So, you know, what want to be the newest new company that is kind of like the follow-up for MySQL that was created in Finland like way back. So I think that together we can do amazing things, and I really think that that we should do much more between you know, the Nordics and India, Europe and India, and I think again that is something that is maybe not obvious, but I think that will become more and more obvious. And then we should do this on like all levels. So of course, education is something that I'm kind of very serious about, like transforming globally. And I think that there's a lot that we can kind of like learn and share on both sides when it comes to education. And then I think that is really kind of the basis then for you know, the talent creation, and then from there. You see the fantastic startups and the fantastic new businesses, and I think that then like in the end it is all about you know what I personally think is at the core of like entrepreneurship, and like for any entrepreneur, that I mean, why are we doing what we're doing, and it's kind of like a bit of a cliche, but it's always, you know, like to you know, change the world, to make the world a better place. And I think that we have a big responsibility in doing exactly that. And again, one reason why we're here with the companies from Europe this week, that we want to create again new fantastic relationships between the startups here in India and the ones in Europe. So I think that we need to do much more in that area.
Being education is one of the spaces that you're excited about. Can you tell me some of your favorite startups, others that you track in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, so when I left Rovio and Angry Birds, and I actually did, you know, we, as you mentioned, we had already then, I think, over 3 billion downloads, not even before now, I kept track, but then you know, we got the movie out May 2016. It became #1 like pretty much everywhere. I think 52 countries, including India. And then just said that okay, that I thought it was like a good time to start doing bigger things. And then of course everybody was like, oh, Peter, like what could be bigger? I mean, this is like pretty big. And obviously, of course, Angry Birds is like the biggest kind of like thing in gaming ever if you look at the numbers. But also we built the fastest growing consumer brand, and you know, a lot of like very cool things, and we have a very capable team at Rovio. They know what they're doing, and if you look at like how the company is doing, okay, I did the IPO last year, and you know, everything is looking very good. But then I said, okay, I'm gonna do like bigger things, and then they said, okay, what could be bigger? I said, of course, education. And education is actually the second biggest market on the planet. I mean, it's second only to food, and education, I mean, depends on who you ask, but it's 6.3 trillion, and that's a lot of money. And then when I have 2 kids, and I look at, you know, kind of their school days in Finland, they're very short. They typically, you know, like 9 or 10 in the morning, and they get home early afternoon. Then they go out, you know, play football or play with their friends, you know, and then they do maybe, I don't know, 15-30 minutes of homework, so like very little, and we achieve fantastic results. Then I talk to my friends in, you know, Singapore or China or like you know, all over Asia, and ask them about their kids, because as you do, you know, like, okay, how are you doing, how are the kids, and then you kind of start talking about school, and then it's very typical that you have very, very long school days, you have like crazy amount of homework. And then I always said like, oh, but like when do you actually have time to go like for life? And you know, like if it's only school, I mean, you don't really learn like the life skills. And then I just realized, okay, the global market is 6.3, and you know, why don't we like apply a bit of like Finnish thinking to this and reduce it to half? So because we can, you know, achieve the same or better results by doing less, and I think that just make it more efficient. So let's reduce it to 3 trillion. And then what I want to do over the next 10 years is capture, you know, only 10%. So that still leaves like a cool 300 billion. And that's what I've been up to now for almost 2 years. And started some companies. And one of the companies, Lightyear. So we teamed up with CERN, you know, the guys run that massive collider in Geneva. And then also with University of Helsinki, Oxford, and we brought on board some of the people who were involved in making Angry Birds. So Lauri Järvilehto, he wrote a book about fun learning. And then Lauri Konttori, he started the Rovio Animation Studio. Then Niklas Hed, who actually started Rovio, and so one of the co-founders, and then myself. And the 4 of us started Lightyear. And what we wanted to do is prove that you can learn like anything by playing games. And then the first game that we created, it's now in soft launch, Big Bang Legends. And yeah, you can have like some, of course, always like some props. So this is actually, we made also a card game version. And so the game is out in Singapore, in Finland, in a couple of countries. And when you play the game, you will actually learn particle physics. And you learn particle physics without realizing that you're learning, which is, you know, like stealth learning. So it's really cool. So I mean, like when you look at this thing here, let's see if I can show. Yeah, so that on there you have helium. So you know, one of the basic elements. So we actually took all the elements, the whole periodic table, and we turned them into characters. So here, you know, like if I get up, here is neon. So that's, you know, like 10 protons. You know? But anyway, but yeah, so we've been testing the game now in schools, and we go there and we ask the kids in class, okay, anybody here like games? And then everybody raises their hand that Then we ask them that, okay, anybody played games in class? And then there are a few daring ones that, oh yeah, you know, like maybe sometime. But then we ask them that, okay, anybody here love you know, particle physics? And we now tested with 6 to like 16-year-olds, and then the 6-year-olds typically go that, what's particle physics? And then when we ask the slightly older kids, then there's maybe 1 or 2 that like admit to loving particle physics. And then we let them play the game for like 15 minutes in class, and then we can't collect the iPads back, and then we ask them that, okay, did you like the game? And we've gotten like fantastic feedback. So people, you know, all the kids in class like the game. But then the following question is always, you know, like interesting. Then we ask them that, okay, you can't love the game, but did you learn anything? And then no matter if we're in Finland or Singapore or Argentina, we actually get the same answer, and the kids always say, we didn't, you know, like learn anything. And of course, if you're in the business of making learning games, then you know, that's a bit like scary. But then we always follow up with, you know, like, okay, so you're telling us now that you didn't learn anything, but can you maybe tell us how many quarks in a proton? Do you know, by the way?
No, I don't know.
I didn't know it before we started.
Science.
No, I didn't know, and I don't know if you even learned that. Like, but anyway, by playing the game, I mean, after playing the game for 15 minutes, all the kids, you know, like me, and then three quarks in a proton. So they learn that by playing the game. And then we say, okay, cool. Could you like now name, you know, 5 atoms, 5 of the characters that you found like in the game? And then they go that, yeah, of course, hydrogen, helium, lithium, and so on. And so all of these guys here are like characters in the game, but they're also like atoms. And what is really cool that we kind of built Pokemon or particle physics. So anybody with the kids knows that kids know, like 200, 300 Pokemon by heart, no problem.
Yeah.
And then you can always debate how useful that is in real life. But with this Big Bang Legends game, we've now turn particle physics into something that's fun, and you don't even kind of realize that you're learning. And one more thing about that it's cool with all these like unexpected effects.
Okay.
So one of my friends in Hong Kong, so his son I think is was it 8 or 10? Let's say 10. And he said that it's fantastic that now when they go shopping, his son, goes and checks all the package. Oh, there's calcium in this. Let's buy this. I know that character.
Yeah.
And I said, how cool is it that now, just like somebody might be a fan of Pikachu or one of the Pokemon. Now we have people who are fans of helium, fans of copper. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So tell me more about this FinEst initiative. What are you aiming to achieve from it?
Yeah, so one thing that so I was together with the team. We started Slush in 2008. So that's now become the biggest and obviously best startup event on the planet. And I think there are many reasons for that. But one thing that we did from the beginning, we actually made it very clear that we're not trying to do one of these wannabe Silicon Valley things. So I actually started my career at HP. So this company that Bill and Dave started in their garage in 1939, and then Silicon Valley happened, and it took many years. But and Silicon Valley, we've been there I don't know how many times, and during my HP times probably once a month. But so it's fantastic, and we have great talent there and all that. But there's only one Silicon Valley, and then it annoys me to no end with everybody just trying to copy, Silicon Valley. I don't think that you can copy your way into leadership. So what we made with Slush is that we organized it in Helsinki in November. And Helsinki in November, just 6 hours from here, it's cold, dark, and there's slush on the ground. Okay. So it's very clear that it's not the Silicon Valley. It's better. And it's better because it's different. So we're actually doing things quite differently, and I think that's why Slush became the biggest and best startup event on the planet. And we now also have Slush events in Shanghai, in Tokyo, in Singapore. And it's not about the events. We actually wanted to create a big community to change the mindset, change the whole attitude around startups and entrepreneurship, and that's actually what has happened now. If you look at Finland, look at Nordic countries, that there's massive explosion in startups. But with that, of course, comes similar challenges that you see in places like Silicon Valley. That you might have a great job at Google or Facebook, and then you ask, and I have many friends actually there, ask them, so where do you live? Oh, I live, in that room together with 10 other guys, and then because the pricing for housing can be insane. So what we're doing now, and is we're actually building this finest Bay Area, so connecting Helsinki and Tallinn, so the two cities, into one metropolitan area. So we're doing that through this pretty significant 15 billion euro tunnel project. And that's something that we started working on a year and a half ago. And the plan is to start actually boring this year already, and super aggressive timeline. And in 5 years we'll have the tunnel completed, which makes it possible to go from the Tallinn airport to the Helsinki airport in just 20 minutes. So that's actually faster than
usually. How much time does it take?
2 hours now with a ferry. So and basically 20 minutes, that's less time that it takes to change flights in Heathrow or walking from one gate to the other side of the airport in Frankfurt. So it's pretty efficient. But anyway, the whole idea there that we then create this metropolitan area of 3 million people, which of course in India doesn't sound like a lot, but in Europe it's quite significant. It's bigger than Stockholm, bigger than Amsterdam. And we have a fantastic startup ecosystem in both Helsinki and Tallinn. So now we're using the tunnel to create the physical connectivity. But the tunnel is kind of like just the, okay, I guess you can't say tip of the iceberg, but I mean some other like analogy. But it's kind of like enabling us then to kind of like cope with the future growth. So Finnish economy now is growing faster than any other economy in Europe. Okay, we had 10 years of nothing, so it's about time. But I think that then when you look at the tunnel, we will have 4 stations, and all the station areas are designed so that they will accommodate 50,000 new people. So there will be apartments for 50,000 new people, and that means we have like room for immediately, you know, like around the tunnel for 200,000 new inhabitants in the Helsinki Tallinn metropolitan area. So we can, you know, keep housing prices at bay. And I think then another thing that we really believe in creating higher like talent density, and this also links to the fact that we're working on bringing in the 150,000 foreign university students. So the tunnel is kind of like a small piece of kind of like the bigger plan, if you will. And this is also, you know, our way of building something that is not the Silicon Valley. It's better because it's different. And of course, we're leveraging our superior geographic location that we have Europe on one side, Asia on the other side. So our home market actually has 5 billion people, and that's 70% of the world's population. So I mean, for me to get here to Delhi, you know, roughly 6 hours, but it's the same Helsinki to Beijing, 6 hours, 7 hours to Shanghai. We have more direct flights to Japan than pretty much anybody. So again, Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, and so on. And then with China, we have direct flights to, of course, Beijing, Shanghai, but also Chongqing, Nanjing is starting now. We have Xi'an, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and I think that what was very cool, okay, maybe not for everybody on the plane, but the plane from Helsinki to Delhi was packed, and I was told that like all the flights are completely booked, and I think that this is again great example that we only have like Helsinki, Delhi, but I fully expect us to get many more direct flights to India, because the Indian economy is also doing very well, and you have this massive startup explosion here, just like we have. So I think that again, everything is kind of like related to everything, and I think that it's a fantastic opportunity now for us to bring kind of this finest Bay Area, so Helsinki Tallinn metropolitan area, closer to India, and also we're very interested in seeing more Indian startups establish themselves in Helsinki, just like you know the Chinese startups are doing.
So just like India and Nordic collaboration, you have done similar on the lines like China and Nordic collaboration. What were your learnings from that?
I think that the learning is you know, when first of all, when you ask like, okay, how many times I've been to India, and as I said, first time this year, but this year I've already been to China twice, and I typically go to China like 2 times a month, and I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And I can also say that once I Beijing 被学大学习了8个星期的汉语，但是我的汉语还不完美。So I studied Chinese for 8 weeks at Beijing Normal University. That's why my Chinese is not yet perfect. So the point that I'm making there is that you really need to take these things seriously, and I think that that's also what I've been working with, like the Finnish, the Estonian, Nordic startups. That I mean, really look at China, not you know like go there once a year and visit and meet with some people, but really you know like it requires that you put people on the ground, you find the right partner, and all of that. And this is also now this week that we have the startup delegation here. We expect to be back, actually we're already looking that probably we'll be back in April next time, and then you know, we'll have the same companies come here on a regular basis, and ideally you know, find some good partners and start working with the kind of local startups. So I think that maybe one important kind of lesson is that you can't just like visit now and then, but you really kind of need to do that kind of like with serious commitment, and that's something that I think is maybe the most important thing. And then I think another thing is that you know, people are people everywhere. So I think that it's typically super easy when we do these, people to people, startup to startup collaboration. Our governments sometimes are, let's say, not as fast, and I think that there's a bit more kind of like form, not always so much function involved. So I think that it's super important that we do these kind of direct contacts, and more of that the better, because then if you look at kind of like our planet from space, and actually one of the projects I'm working on is Space Nation, but anyway, so they're really focusing on kind of like a world without borders, and I think that it's always a good reminder that when you look at the planet from space, there are no borders. And I think that this is also something that in the startup world, that people don't care if you're like a startup from India or Pakistan or Sweden or Finland or something like that, that it's very like-minded people, and you always kind of then realize that these like guys are actually like pretty nice, and I can probably like work with them. And I think that this is what you always find out, and I think that it's very important because of that we bring the people together, we bring the startups together, and it's kind of like our jobs as entrepreneurs to really kind of like make that happen. And we also have like a very good kind of like business reasons for doing that. I mean, especially Finland and Estonia, now that we have like the delegation. I mean, there's 5 million people in Finland, so everybody understands that being the market leader in Finland is not like super interesting. But then being the market leader in India is already more interesting, or then if you look at this whole like Eurasian market of 5 billion people, obviously if you're number one there, you're number one in the world. So I think that it's important to have a global perspective.
And how do you think that India and China startup ecosystem compare?
I think that it used to be very different, but I think that India has done a fantastic job really catching up with kind of the rest of the world, and I think there's fantastic development. And I think that also now, I mean, we're here at this like co-working space here, and this could be in Helsinki, or it could be in Beijing, or it could be in San Francisco, and it's not like massively different. So I think that it's an example of the fact that the startup culture is very global, and I think that exact same thing as we've seen. If I take Finland as an example, that it just requires that we get more people with kind of more experience, or having done many startups, raised many, financing rounds, and I think that then you kind of like start to understand that there's no kind of like magic to it. I mean, it's just you want to demystify all of these things, and I think that that's also what I see here in India right now. That it's kind of like it's kind of like becoming normal thing to do to join a startup, and I think that this is and more so, and it's more like mainstream, and you might bump into people in the street that talk about startups.
Common now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like something that is very like exclusive and very like mystical and all that. So I think that India is on like very good track there. And then I think that also it's kind of like important for the startups, for the entrepreneurs to constantly challenge the government. So I mean, that's what we do in Finland all the time. That we're really pretty vocal about like what needs to be done, and we've done a lot of work on making it easier, faster, and I think that. I always ask wherever I go that how long does it take to start a company? I mean, just to do the paperwork. And in Finland, you can do everything online, and it's like, I don't know, half an hour and you're done.
In India also, there are steps.
So it's like, okay, very good. And I think that these are kind of the things that we need to have, because I still remember when many years ago I went to Argentina and I asked the same question, and they said that, okay, it takes like many months. And I was like, what? I mean, like, how can it take many months? I mean, just like setting up a company. And okay, now kind of there also the new government has been very much like pro startup and like getting getting it easier. So now you can quite easily set up a company, and I think that it's just like a reflection of kind of the overall like bureaucracy and all of that, and I think that on that side, the British left this like legacy of bureaucracy in India, and I think that there's a lot of red tape that you don't really need. So I think that it's also a good kind of opportunity for the startups and the entrepreneurs to be vocal about that and kind of get some change going. So I think that that's what we've been doing in Finland and continue to do, that we challenge our government to do better like all the time, and that's actually one thing that we're now doing a project, took a delegation, went to Argentina, and then we basically said, okay, we're actually here and we're going to remove corruption. And then they were like, started laughing, and then, no, I'm serious, I actually brought a guy from the tax office with me. And then like, oh, what? You brought that tax person with you on a startup like trip? And I said, yeah, we work very closely together with our tax office, and they're like customer service organization, so of course they joined when we asked them to join, and then we started working on that project and brought in like some more experts on kind of like anti-corruption thing and all that. And I think this is also like a role of startups, that let's kind of like involve the government side, that they actually have a lot of talent there, but in typical kind of like more public side, it's not always that they they are not always approaching it the way startups are doing. And I think that the government side can learn a lot from startups, that we don't make things into a problem before they are a problem. And then also this kind of like can-do attitude, that of course we can do this, and like why not? And then we just like start figuring out. So I think that that kind of like entrepreneurship as a mindset is not in any way like the exclusive domain of startups. I think that you need that kind of thinking in governments, in big companies, like everywhere, and I think that's very healthy if we push that everywhere.
Now coming to Angry Birds, even Prime Minister of UK believes that he is mildly addicted to the game. Tell us like how exactly everything started for you, Brian.
I think that there's kind of many places to start, but maybe one thing that I think is actually important, not so much it led to Angry Birds, but in 2003 I was working at HP and I organized a game making competition. And then that was to make the best possible mobile multiplayer games. This was 2003, before iPhone, before Android, when our friends at Nokia were kind of still making phones, and actually they are again. So again, but anyway, so then Niklas, Kim, and Jarno, so there were three young guys from Aalto University. They took part in this game making competition, and they actually won. And then they came to me. And said that, okay, now what? And then I said, okay, I've always believed in doing what you love. So I said, okay, you guys love making games, love playing games, why don't you start a company to make games? So then they started a games company, so they started Rovio in 2003. And then over the next 6 years, they made 51 games, and then the 52nd game that came out 11th of December 2009 was Angry Birds. So the reason why I want to start like way back is that many of these success stories take a long time. So it's not like an overnight like thing. And I think that also what is kind of inspiring about the Rovio story is that it really started as a student project and then became Angry Birds. And $1 billion IPO last year, so it's like interesting kind of thing. But I think that then if you look at kind of Angry Birds, the game itself, I mean, Jaakko Iisalo, so he is one of the game designers, or was one of the game designers at Rovio at the time. So he had been drawing these bird characters for a long time, and then he was pitching a new game idea that featured the bird characters. Then the rest of the team didn't really kind of like get the game mechanic and all that, but they all fell in love with the characters and said we have to build a game around those birds. And then basically it all started from that, and I think that's also very interesting that you started with the characters, not the game. And in the games business, many times you actually start with like an interesting game mechanic and then, we need some characters. And I think that that's probably also one key to the success. And this is actually like with this that I mentioned, this like Big Bang Legends, that we actually started with the characters, and then we come and build the game around that. And I think that I'm really a big believer in kind of like the character business, and I think there are great places, you know, Japan, Korea, fantastic character business. So you could say that Japan is like the Hollywood of the character business in good and bad. But I think that again, there are many stories that you could share about kind of like Angry Birds and the marketing and all of that. And I think that maybe one important thing that I think is important in any business, that we were not afraid of going into totally new areas. And areas that we didn't know anything about. But I think that when you have that kind of like courage, then you know, like yes, you go into a new area, and then you're not afraid. And of course, when you do new things, sometimes you fail, but you also learn. And I think that that's something that is very important. That you have to have that kind of like attitude always. That you know, like let's go there and let's learn how to do this. But yeah, anyway. We're running out of time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So before we come to the final questions from the audience, just last question from you. What's your favorite game apart from Angry Birds?
I can't say big advantage. No, but I think that there are many. But I've actually been playing this Battle for Polytopia. So it's kind of like a Swedish indie developed game. So it's a bit like a kind of simplified, very nicely designed like version of Civilization. That's very cool. Then other games that I have to mention that are like classics, so Plants vs Zombies, fantastic characters, and like kind of like a lot of like quirky little like nice ideas in there. So that's you know, like a all-time favorite as well. But there are so many like great games, and there are like 700 new games hitting every day. So it's
Okay. So the first question is from Rahul. He's asking, what's the top metric that gaming companies should pay attention to the most?
Yeah. So I think that the top metric is actually, or the most important thing is to make fantastic games. And at Rovi we always said that we are making games that we love playing ourselves, and I think that this is something that is again very important. And I think that it's you have to start by making a great game. Then of course nowadays you then also need to worry about metrics in this kind of free-to-play, freemium world. So then you start looking at kind of retention numbers and all that. But I think that we also had like very early. We always talked about like get, keep, monetize. And I think that the most important thing is that you need to get people to play your game. I mean, now with 700 new games hitting every day, there are hundreds of thousands of games out there. So how do you get people to actually download your game? And then once they do, you better make sure that you keep them. So really, you know, then you get into the retention, and of course you want to have your retention numbers to be like super good, because otherwise it's not going to be a sustainable business. So then you start looking at that. But I think before you start worrying about retention, you really need to figure out the marketing. How do you get people to download the game? But that's not enough. I mean, you have to have the get, keep, and then once you have the that figured out, then I think the monetization. I mean, okay, it's not easy, but obviously if you have a big number of people playing your game, it's a bit easier to monetize than having no players. Then, you know, like who cares about the monetization? So I would always start with really thinking about, okay, how do you make your game stand out? How do you do marketing? And here we get into kind of brand. I think brand will become even more important in games going forward. So yeah, keep monetizing.
Diana is asking, hi Peter, do you plan to collaborate with Indian startups working in the gaming sector?
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, and already started that. I only landed in the morning, and I already had some meetings around this. So definitely want to collaborate with local startups, not only in gaming, but also like in all areas. So I have invested in a few new games companies, so always looking for partners for them here in India. And also then I'm very interested in looking at what kind of opportunities there are in India to work with kind of local studios, and like and it could take like many different forms and shapes. So short answer is that absolutely.
Are you personally also looking to invest in Indian startups?
Let's say that I'm always looking into investing and working with startups, no matter where they are. And I think that that is a nice thing about the startup community, and seeing that it's very, very global in nature. And like the next Angry Birds, next big thing could come, could come out of Delhi, or it could come out of Stockholm or Helsinki, and like again, it could be like anywhere. And on this trip we're all going like Delhi and Mumbai, but yeah, fully expect to be back and then like talk to companies all over India.
Okay, Pallav is asking, what are some of the other startups from around the world that you really like or look up to?
Ooh, all right. I think that. Okay, I like startups in general. I mean, just like it's always fantastic to work with great entrepreneurs, and I think that great entrepreneurs typically think alike, and there's always great people to hang out with. But then okay, which startups? Yeah, it's kind of like a tough question, but I would say that. Some of them I'm either invested in or I've been involved in like getting going. So it's always it's a little bit then like okay, which of your kids do you love the most? and it's a little bit impossible to answer because they are so different. But I think that again. Yeah, maybe diplomatic answer is that there are so many startups doing so many great things that it's impossible to come at least list all of them. But again,
any one name?
No, I think I'm not gonna like.
Okay, no issues.
Yeah.
So just the last question. Asta is asking, do you think an app-only approach is feasible today, or should a company develop both mobile and web?
Ooh, I think that the answer is probably not a good one, and that it depends.
Okay.
Because I think also here that we have to keep in mind that these kind of things come and go. So it used to be that okay, apps were nothing, and like errors, okay, it's just like the web and like who cares. And then okay, Apple and the App Store and like all that changed, and now we're like even a question that okay, that should you have a web thing as well along with the app? And I think that then again these kind of like the technical kind of like approaches like come and go, and I think that you can't go wrong if you focus on providing a fantastic fan experience. And I always talk about fan experience because I think that I mean, we did that at Rovio also all the time, that it has to be the experience you deliver has to be at a level that you actually create fans.
Yeah.
And I think that you should always focus on that. And then do you need an app? Do you need a website, or do you need to make the thing run on intelligent speaker or something like that? I think that that really is kind of derived from starting by really thinking about the fan experience that you want to provide.
That's it, guys. Thanks for joining us today. And if you have any additional questions for Peter, you can tweet him at
P Vesterbacka. So pretty easy to find. It's not like the easiest kind of like name, but yeah, it should be pretty easy to find. And then also like final message that if there are any students watching this, really think about studying in Finland. I promise you that we can provide fantastic experience, fantastic education, and you might end up, like in a fantastic startup. Yeah, so I really recommend that. So check out edunation.co for that.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys once again for joining us, and stay tuned to Inc42 for more such exciting events.